So what led to the creation of Reflections in the Sea of Nurnen?
Well, I was into a lot of philosophy. So, I was reading this book called the Book of the Tobal Vast or something like that. And the Sea of Nurnen was a place mentally where you could go.
Okay.
Where everything was cool.
Okay, so that...
everything was cool. So, like I called the album that. I wrote a song called Sea of Nurnen. And Reflections was the ballad that Otis Harris wrote.
Right, okay.
The alto player that was on there. So I just called the album Reflections in the Sea of Nurnen.
Do you remember when the session was recorded?
Yeah, actually, see, what happened was I was already taking lessons on the Moog synthesizer from David Litwin and Patrick Gleason. And see, to be honest with you, I'm the one that steered Patrick Gleason to Herbie Hancock's band. See, a lot of people don't know that, but, I don't walk around bragging about it. But because I showed them how to get into a lot of places where they would normally be able to get into. See, they weren't players, they weren't jazz players. They were like composers of electronic music, and they were really into it. But I'm the one who steered Patrick Gleason to. I even practically told him what to say to Herbie,
Yeah.
And they used to offer me a lot of deals. So they offered me a block of studio time, like $20 an hour, $25 an hour.
Yeah.
Back then, nobody did that.
Yeah.
Because studio time was like $60 an hour and up.
Yeah, yeah.
$100 an hour and up, like that.
So you got a good deal on it.
I had blocks of it, and I did more recording than I don't have the masters because of, a lot of things happen, divorces and all that. Things get lost, and, but I did a lot more recording than just Sea of Nurnen.
So with this blocked studio time you got, was this where you and Doug came together and you're like, let's use this studio time and get something down?
Yeah. Well, Doug had these vocals and we did the vocals. See, I'm going to tell you another thing too. See, Doug didn't like electronic machines. Nothing. He still don't,
Yeah.
He don't. He just don't. We use my electronic music to fill in the gaps and stuff like that.
So did you have to persuade him to incorporate the electronic side into the album, or was he a bit more sort of like...
Yeah, I did. And when we couldn't get a certain amount of horn players, I showed him how to play stuff on the synthesizer.
Yeah.
And some of them tracks that you hear the ARP synthesizer on,
Yeah.
he played himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he played the ARP himself. Some of the melodica parts, he played that on my electronic tracks. You just have to know how to talk to Doug to persuade him to do something, but it don't interest him at all. He don't enjoy playing it, and he don't want to be bothered with it if he don't have to. Basically, he is not an electronic music lover,
Well, fair enough. I mean...
he ain't like me. And then what happened was we were trying to put the record out. We were walking around the different record companies with it, trying to get it pressed and released. And nobody would release it. And then Wendell came along and said, why don't you release it with us?
Oh, okay, so that's how it came about.
Yeah, that's how we got it in Detroit, because we were both living in New York trying to get it released with Strata East. I love that album cover. I really love it. In fact, I got it hanging in my house.
Have you?
Yeah, I got the color version. See, it was in color, and we couldn't afford the color when we pressed up the album. We wanted to get the album out, so we just went with black and white. But the original stained glass pool player was in color.
So why was the single released separately to the whole album? Was it used to promote the full LP?
Because we had so much time to put on the album, right?
Yeah.
See, like I said, you got to know Dub to understand Dub.
Right, okay.
Dub wanted all his music put on there. I just said, okay, and plus I wanted to put Otis's ballad on there.
Yeah.
That Reflections. So it was either put Venus Flytrap on there or Reflections.
Yeah.
So I chose to let Otis, because, you know, like everybody was trying to get a little publishing time and everybody was trying to get a little copyright time, you know, like, so I said, well, this is our group, so let's share it, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll put Venus Flytrap on something else when I get a chance, and I did.
And that came after the LP then?
Yeah. After the LP was released, that came about 6 months to a year afterwards.
Cool. And so obviously Tribe put it out, but did you say you did most of the distribution for the single?
Yeah, I did most of it. You know, they did some, but see, I'm gonna tell you, back then, if you had a funky record out, nobody helps you too much. You know, especially if you connected up with a jazz label, they didn't want to help you, and that's how that was. And it did good. You know, it did good.